one of my favorites that I got to work with. As a matter of fact, I probably did more NFL Total Access shows with this man as an analyst on that program than anybody else. And he's a first-rate individual and a Pro Football Hall of Famer, Rod Woodson. How are you, Rod?
What's going on, brother? How are you?
I'm fine. How are you? You there, Rod?
Can you hear me, Rich?
I can. Can you hear me, Rod?
I got you. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. I mean, let's start, I guess, with the passing of your friend and colleague and Pro Football Hall of Famer Kevin Greene. Rod, I'm sure this took you aback just like everybody else.
Well, it definitely did. I got a text yesterday from somebody in the front office from the Steelers saying that Kevin passed, and I was like, what? Then a guy, one of our teammates called me and asked me if I knew anything. Then I called the Steelers, and they told me what they know. And, it's just unfortunate. Guy, 58 years old, is at home, feeling pretty good for the most part. And then, he said he didn't feel good for a second, and, he collapsed and passed away. So, what I remember about Kevin Greene is when I first met him, I was at my first Pro Bowl, and I was on the punt team for the AFC. He was on the NFC team. I was a wing guy, and he put his hands on me, wouldn't let me get off the line. I felt like a little baby, kicking and screaming and trying to get down the field. And he was just laughing at me and saying, "Wood, you're not going to get away from me, Wood." And that was my first experience with him. And a great human being. My prayers go out to his wife and his kids. He'll never be forgotten.
So one thing to take from that story, Pro Bowl? He's playing like that in a Pro Bowl, Rod? For real? He really did that in a Pro Bowl?
Listen, back in the day, we took the Pro Bowl very seriously.
Mm-hmm.
That was we got a little extra change in our wallets.
Yes, that's true.
But anytime you get competitors together, you want to have fun. You don't want to get injured, obviously, but, you want to win.
Right.
And at the end of the day, back then,
he really took
there were some pretty hard hits. There were some guys that took it extremely serious. And if you brought your in-laws or your parents, you needed to win to try to break even.
That's right. I remember that. That's right. But the fact that, again, Kevin Greene is playing that hard in a Pro Bowl, obviously, it was maybe more prevalent back in the day, but he's just, obviously – You've got to be a certain competitor to get in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. What would you want people, young folks who might not have seen Kevin Greene play, know about him and his style, Rod?
Well, he was a tremendous player. A lot of people, it took him a while to get into the Hall of Fame, but, he had double-digit sacks for over 10 years. Getting 10 sacks is hard to do for 1 year. He did it for over 10 years. And, this is a tremendous player. But the one thing I really respect about him is that he was a great family man. He was offered a job at the AAF as a head coach, declined it because he wanted to be with his family. He left the Jets because he wanted to be with his kids in high school. It was about family for him. And I respect that tremendously because family is very important. At the end of the day, that's all we have. And, he just exemplified everything about being a blue-collar worker because in this society, we praise people who talk a lot of trash and point at their backs, and it's all about them. And Kevin wasn't like that. Kevin was just a blue-collar, hard-hat worker, came to play every single day and played extremely well at a high level for the vast majority of his career, and that's the main reason he's in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. But the long, flowy hair with the strong attitude, man, I'll never forget it.
And he, I know he played in other places, but kind of the Steeler mentality, he personified it.
Oh, absolutely. Rich, the first time I seen him in person in the Steeler facility. Mm-hmm. I walked into the weight room. His back was turned to me. I thought we traded for an offensive lineman because he was that big. And he turned around, and I was like, Kevin, I didn't know you were that doggone big. No wonder I couldn't get away from you at the Pro Bowl. So, it's, he was a Steeler through and through. He played like a Steeler. His mindset was like a Steeler. And the great thing about playing with Kevin, we had Kevin Greene, we had Greg Lloyd, so we used to call him Salt and Pepper. Anytime we wanted, Dom Capers, our defense coordinator, to put some pressure on the quarterback, we're like, hey, give that quarterback a little spice. And then as soon as we said that, Dom would call our Saw Dog, which is cover one, but he's going to bring the Sam and the Will, which is Greg and Kevin Greene, and they would normally always get back to the quarterback.
Salt and pepper, and then mix it up in the backfield, and usually it would mean with some quarterback on his backside. Unbelievable. Rod Woodson here on the Rich Eisen Show. Let's talk about the here and now. How concerned are you about the Steelers right now, Rod?
Well, you're definitely concerned. I mean, 3 in a row. You play the first half of the season to get yourself ready for the second half of the season. In December, losing 3 straight games is concerning. And the way they're losing is concerning. No running game. They still got the little quick short passing games, but, anytime you're one-dimensional, and if you look at their stats the last 3 weeks, they are really one-dimensional, throwing the football, quick rhythm, take a couple shots down the field. That's what they've done, but everybody's kind of caught up to that. And if they don't get a running game or a semblance to the running game, it's going to hurt them. And, you look at their last 2 games, they got the Colts and the Browns. So those are no give-me. So it's going to be interesting to see how they play. Obviously they're already in the postseason, but if you can't get on a winning streak going into the playoffs, your mindset as a team, somewhere along the line, those guys that are on the borderline are going to start questioning even if should they belong. So, Mike Tomlin's a great coach. I know he'll get them back in order, but they got to find a way to get a running game, Rich, or it's going to be a short playoff career for him this year.
Well, my current colleague, your former at NFL Network, Aditi Kinkhabwala, reporting that Mike Tomlin said today he's going to talk to Juju about dancing in other teams' logos. Apparently that helped the Bengals stir themselves up last night, Rod.
I don't get that, Rich. I just don't get it. I understand you want everybody to bring their own uniqueness to the game, but the disrespect, the logo is like a sacred ground. It's that sacred ground. Remember T.O. tried to do it on the Dallas Cowboys logo?
Oh, yeah.
And after a touchdown? I mean, you can't do stuff like that. And I know it's a pregame, but you just can't do it. It gives motivation. You're 11-0 at the time, when this whole thing, when they're at the beginning of the year, and then you're gonna get the A game from every team that you play against. But now you're giving the team added motivation to play even better and harder against your offense, and they've done that the last 3 weeks.
Well, I also remember T.J. Houshmandzadeh wiping his cleats on a terrible towel. I remember that too. And Pittsburgh did not like that at all. I mean, folks still talk about that. And then, but how do you find it? That's the problem. How do you find that run game? I mean, just hope that Connor gets healthy, and shows up. I mean, how do you find it so late in the game? And then you got the Colts, with that defensive front, Darius Leonard and DeForest Buckner, followed by Myles Garrett and Olivier Vernon, then followed by a playoff season. I mean, this is dire straits in a way, Rod. Right?
Rich, after you just said that, it didn't make me feel too good. I got kind of queasy.
That's my job, Rod. As you know, if working together, I just lend perspective. That's my job, is to lend perspective and hear your opinion.
It is going to be tough for them, Rich. To be honest, they haven't been a great running football team over the last couple years. I love the story of Connor and what he brings to the table when he is healthy. But that's the problem, when he is healthy. And not only about the running game, but I think the middle of the field for the Steelers and the linebacking core, all the injuries they've been ravaged with over the years, throughout this year, they need to find somebody. I mean, Vince Williams, when he comes back, that's going to help them. But, having all those injuries from the linebacker, when you're a 3-4 and your guys start going down and you're missing your top several inside linebackers, and the one thing that they exploited quite a bit the last couple of weeks has been the middle of the field. And that's where those linebackers roam.
Rod Woodson here on the Rich Eisen Show. A few minutes left with the Pro Football Hall of Famer. So What are your 2 cents on the final 2 weeks here in this regard? Do you go with body of work last year into this year and just know this team that has playoff hopes, or is at the top of a playoff food chain like the Chiefs or the Saints, Packers, that they're fine going into this postseason and they are going to be actually the front runners? Or do you go with a hot team, hot hand, Buffalo, Cleveland? Do you go with the way the Titans are playing all of a sudden? You look in the NFC and you're wondering which team might be able to catch fire from that group. Where do you stand on this issue, Rod, right now?
Well, I think Kansas City is the best team in the National Football League. But when I called the Buffalo's game last week in Denver, and when I'm watching their tape over this year, I'm saying if one team can kind of score point for point with the Kansas City Chiefs, it could be the Buffalo Bills.
How about that?
I mean, they have weapons across the board. They can put up a lot of points. Their defense is similar to Kansas City's defense. They're solid. They're good. They're not great. They've been inconsistent, but so is Kansas City's defense. So when I looked at the schedule, I'm saying if we know Kansas City is the best team in the National Football League, what team in the AFC can put up the same amount of points that they can? And the only team I can come up with is the Buffalo Bills.
And, I hear you. I hear you. My concern, again, and it pisses Buffalo fans off, as I know because I see comments, that when it comes down to it, can they possess the football? Maybe they could do it with Josh Allen being part of that running attack and then just move the chains and let the clock run down. Can they possess the football 6, 7, 8 minutes at a time consistently enough to keep the possessions limited for Kansas City? Can they do that? Do they have Singletary and Moss do that for them? Is it Allen mixed in? Is it the short game with Dawson Knox and Cole Beasley? Can they do that in the cold of Kansas City? I guess they can, right? Yeah, they can.
Yeah, you just say so because Moss and Singletary, even though Moss is about the same size as Singletary is more of a scat back, Right. Moss is a thick lower body running back who, when he lowers his shoulder pads, he's getting extra yardage. He's moving the pile. And then they have a short passing game, but then you got Josh Allen in the running game, so they can go empty. They'll go quarterback draw. That's a called run. They can, when they get in the red zone, that's where it's critical. When they get in the red zone, Josh Allen doesn't make a lot of mistakes. He hasn't thrown an interception in the red zone since this year. And he's rushed in his career. He had 2 last week. So he has 24 rushing touchdowns in his young career. So he's capable of adding to that running game. And anytime you can get quarterbacks who can get, first downs with unscheduled first downs with their feet, it just adds to the dynamics to it. So I think they could eat the clock up. But they're a big play, big strike offense, very similar to Kansas City. And I just keep saying, if any team can score 30 points like Kansas City can on a consistent basis, it could be the Buffalo Bills.
And so what's the comp for Josh Allen from your playing days? Is it Elway? Would that be the proper comp for Josh Allen, the way he's playing right now? Or is that too much?
It's very similar. I mean, I'm not going to put him in the Hall of Fame category.
No, well, he's playing most valuable right now in a way. But what's the comp? I mean, for somebody that big who can run with a big gun, who's the comp for Josh Allen from your days?
Well, that's a great question. I don't know if anybody that big could run like he runs. He can throw. He throws a great deep ball. He doesn't. When you look at, Drew Lock, who has a strong arm, well, when Drew Lock throws a deep ball, it's a kind of a straight line deep ball, so he doesn't give his receivers enough time to adjust to it, where Josh Allen, who has a cannon arm, can make any throw in the National Football League. When he throws a deep ball still, he gives enough air to his guys to adjust to it. I mean, I can't really think of a guy who I played against who has the same abilities. Because he's 6'6", he's 245 pounds. He can run you over. He can throw a touch pass, but then he can throw a bullet, and he can throw the long ball. So I mean, he has all the tools in the toolkit. Everybody kept questioning a guy from Wyoming, can he adjust to the National Football League? It doesn't matter where you play. If you have talent, and once you have that talent, you come into this league, you have a good system, and you keep getting better, it doesn't matter where you play. So I think, obviously he's one of the better quarterbacks in the National Football League, and, as he plays well, they'll keep winning.
A couple minutes left with Rod Woodson. Who do you like in the NFC? Who's your NFC team? 2 weeks to go here.
Oh, heck, it's the Green Bay Packers.
How about that?
I mean, right now Aaron Rodgers is playing lights out.
He is.
I'm not the defense is a little inconsistent. They can make plays. They can get some pass rush with the Smith brothers. But, Aaron Rodgers, the way he's playing, and they're not running back, Aaron Jones. When you look at how good he is, how dynamic he is in space, in between tackles, on the edges, in the passing game, and then if they ever get a number 2 receiver, Rich, they're going to be dangerous. They've been trying to figure out who can go opposite of Devontae Adams. But, Devontae Adams, even he said it. He's the best receiver in the National Football League. I think other people probably want to argue with him. Other receivers in the league will want to argue with him. But I think those stats speak for themselves.
Rod, I love you, man. I always miss talking to you whenever I do talk to you. It's interesting. We started with the Pro Bowl conversation. Do you remember the advice you gave me before I went to cover my first Pro Bowl with you? Do you remember the advice you gave me, Rod? Back in the day?
I do not remember, Rich.
You told me out of whatever to do, because, obviously I'd never been to a Pro Bowl there in Hawaii. You told me whatever I do, the last thing I should do is give my room number to anybody. Do you remember that? How do you remember?
That is true. They would take it, and there would be a lot of Mai Tais and lava flows.
But you said, forget about giving your room number to anybody. You said, don't even say it out loud. He said, don't even write. You told me, don't even write it down anywhere, is what you told me.
Yeah, they get you. When am I going to get my Rich Eisen mug and T-shirts in so I can support Rich Eisen?
Well, Rod,
get in line.
These guys are all looking for. Well, Del Tufo, he's looking for free stuff. Rod, Mike. Mike's wearing free stuff from when we worked together for the first show together. That's how old. That's how old his stuff is that he's got on right now. I got you covered, Rod. I got you covered, like you used to cover the entire National Football League. I love you. Best to your family, Rod. We'll chat soon.
All right, take care. Talk to you soon.
The one and only Rod Woodson.
Yeah.
Hey, you watched all the way to the end. Thanks for that. Watch more right here.